So welcome everybody. This is the virtual call out for the business model competition for this year. Just want to introduce myself. I'm Emily Bear. I work at the Center for Entrepreneurship. I help manage the logistics of the competition, and this year I'll also be teaching the workshop, so you'll see my face a lot on a Zoom. Arnold's also here. He is the managing director of the Center for Entrepreneurship. And then the rest of our team is Murillo, who is our grad assistant, and Lola, who is our marketing intern. So thanks for joining us tonight. What we're going to go over tonight is the overview of the competition, what you're going to get out of participating in it, the timeline so you can figure out your time commitment, go over how to find teammates if you don't have a team, or if you don't even have an idea to work on, you want to find one to work on with somebody else, and then the most important thing, how to register for the competition. So first we'll do a quick little poll. Let me pull it up here. If you could, you should see the poll come up in the Zoom polling feature. Let us know how you heard about the call out, what marketing got you here, who told you about it, and then also, are you in West Lafayette or elsewhere? And if you're from elsewhere, please type in the chat where you're from so we know where everybody is. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. We're at California, all right.
Oh man, I hear it's very smoky over there.
Yeah, I saw some pictures, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very
orange sky, yeah.
China, good morning.
Okay. Philippines.
Oh, another San Jose.
Italy. Yeah, everybody's all
must be
spread
late
out.
in Italy.
Yeah, and China.
China's early morning.
Yeah, early morning, yeah. Cool. Yay, some West Lafayette. So, good majority of people are on campus. We were kind of curious with everything being virtual now and lots of online students, how many people would actually be participating from campus. So, all right. I think everybody voted on the poll. DC. Cool. All right, so we'll end the poll. Thank you. I think I can actually share results if anybody cares. All right. So now Arnold can tell us a little bit of the competition history and a few success stories.
So just to let people know, it's almost hard to imagine, but we are the third oldest competition in the US. And we're going into our 34th year this year. I think Emily mentioned it, but there's going to be almost $100,000 in cash prizes available only to Purdue students. So one of the things that we've decided to do is keep the competition closed, meaning just for Purdue students. So it's not an open competition. So for example, a couple of the big ones are the Rice competition, where there's almost $1 million, but that's a national one. And so we wanted to keep this specifically closed just to Purdue students. And a couple of years ago, we morphed the competition from a business plan competition to a business model competition. And Emily will go through some of the subtle differences between the two. And in terms of kind of success stories, over the last, I think it's 5 or 6 years, we've actually had 3 former participants be named into the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So this is a great springboard, both for building up your resume, which we'll talk about later, as well as getting started on your startup idea and learning a bunch more different skills. So in the 33 years of the past competition, we've actually given away or invested $2 million into Purdue student startups, and another $100,000 this year. So kind of talking about success stories. So if you live in the Midwest or in Indiana, maybe you have eaten at an AZ Pizza. So this is Brad Niemeyer. In 2012, he graduated from Purdue with a degree in hotel tour management, and he actually was a Purdue football player. And one of his favorite activities to do after practice was actually cooking and baking pizzas. And so what he did was he got all his football player friends, and after practices, he would just go and practice on dough recipes, on toppings, on sauces. And he entered the competition his senior year in 2012, and he won our business model competition. And he used a $30,000 first place prize to invest in his first store. He used that to buy his first cooking oven. As of 2019, I believe they've opened actually now 10 stores in the Midwest. And he's actually on campus quite a bit working with the certificate program. We've had him speak at events before, but he is just a great resource and kind of a great success story. Another success story is, this is Anurag Garg. He was in electrical and computer engineering. In 2013, he founded a company called Datus, and I should say before that, he had an idea for IoT, and he was working on something with his professor when he was getting his master's degree. And he won the competition also, and that's a couple of years later, after he graduated, he co-founded Datus. And the company raised $1.7 million in venture capital financing. And 2 years ago, they were actually acquired by a larger company called Plex Systems. So he's one who had an exit, kind of went through the competition, won some money, used that seed money to start his company, was able to raise external funding, got acquired. He's also one who was named into the Forbes 30 under 30. And this is a picture of Catherine Clayton. She was a PhD student in biomed engineering. She participated in our competition in 2017, and she was working on a technology and an app that will help detect cholera using just a cell phone. And this is a picture of her on stage at TechCrunch San Francisco in their startup competition. And she ended up coming in second place overall. This is a picture of her during her semifinals. But in a picture of her in the finals, she was able to meet Mamoon Hamid, who is the head of Kleiner Perkins, one of the largest and most pronounced venture capital firms out in the Bay Area. Another judge on that panel was Marissa Mayer, early Google employee, CEO of Yahoo. Ashton Kutcher was on that panel as well, as she got to meet. And so again, a great springboard success story from coming through our competition, starting her company, and now being very successful out in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay, so now, Alyssa, this will answer your question that you put in the chat. So who qualifies for the competition? Any undergrad or graduate students. You can have anybody on your team. They can be non-Purdue students, like students from another university, but 50% of your team must be comprised of Purdue students, and only Purdue students can present in the finals. And also your idea must be your own original idea, so you can't use somebody else's intellectual property in the competition. If you have any concerns about that, feel free to reach out to me or Arnold and we can talk about that. So what do you get out of the competition? Mainly, you get an opportunity to compete for $100,000 in cash and in-kind prizes. So only the finalists compete for those. But the in-kind prizes include Cranert management courses that you get complimentary. Those can be worth upwards of $2,000, and also startup package at some local firms. And also you get, outside of prizes, even if you don't become a finalist, you still gain a broader network of other Purdue entrepreneurs. So not only the students that are competing in the competition with you, but the judges that we bring in for the competition are alumni entrepreneurs themselves a lot of times, or venture capitalists. So you can gain connections by anybody who hears about your idea and is just intrigued by it. So I see there's a couple questions in the chat. We can stop. So 50% of the team in terms of numbers. So like number of members. So if you have 6, at least 3 of them need to be Purdue students. And having a team isn't necessarily a requirement. You can do it by yourself, but it is a lot of work. We'll kind of go over the time commitment of it later. So you might want at least one other person to kind of help you out with it, but it is entirely possible to do it by yourself. And there's no rules against that. Like recent graduates as alumni. So if they just graduated in December, I think that's what we determined was okay for them to still present in April, but anything farther than that, Arnold, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not sure about the gap year, Arnold.
No, they don't need to be specifically. So we've had people have somebody who worked with somebody who just recently graduated and is still on the team. But again, as long as half this, if you want to maybe go back one slide, half the team needs to be comprised of Purdue students. The other can be faculty, other entrepreneurs, friends, high school classmates.
And then your question about making sure that your idea doesn't get plagiarized. I think there's an understanding that nobody's going to steal anybody else's ideas that they hear about in the workshop. Arnold, do you have anything to add to that?
It's always a risk, but I kind of view it as, to be honest, like ideas are a dime a dozen. So odds are that somebody probably had the same idea you did, but what will really separate you will be the execution of it. And this is early on. So if you're saying, oh, I have a way to solve such and such problems, there are a lot of different ways, and we'll work through the business model. A lot of times you're going to need, some sort of way to differentiate yourself, some sort of secret sauce that will make your kind of startup more desirable, or more investable if you have some sort of secret sauce. And then as we're going through this workshop, you don't need to reveal what the secret sauce is. So for example, if you were doing some undergrad research with a professor who is doing a specific algorithm on data analytics or visual analytics, we just need to know roughly what you're doing and how it's going to be applied. We don't need to know the technology behind it.
Right. Yep. And we'll get to the how to register later. I saw a question about that, but there is no registration or application fee or anything like that. And yes, the business idea can be a nonprofit as well. So what else do you get out of it? So besides the prizes and the network, you'll also get, through the workshops that we have leading up to the finals of the competition, you'll learn about the business model canvas like Arnold talked about, and product market fit, and how to do customer discovery. And one thing about that is it's really helpful in job interviews or to put on your resume. Because if you're an engineering student, for example, you may be applying for a job at Google or something like, or Facebook, and there may be 5 other engineers applying for that same job that have all the same qualifications as you, except for you participated in this competition. So therefore, you know about product market fit and talking to customers, which is really valuable to have experience in as an employee. So that can really make you stand out when you're applying for jobs. So be sure to list it on your resume and talk about it in interviews moving forward. And then it might even help you in unexpected ways, like the picture of Catherine Clayton earlier. She said that it helped her to prep to defend her PhD thesis because thinking about the final pitch that she was making, she had to think of all of the questions that judges might ask of her. And that's not unlike defending a PhD thesis. You have to be able to answer all of the questions that they might have. So this was really good practice for her.
Let me add a story here. So in terms of the job interviews, so let me tell you about Arpin Ajmara. So he was an engineering student back in 2017, and he was a finalist in our business model competition. He told me that he is currently now a venture capitalist out in New York. And he told me that to get that job when he was interviewing, he had to go through something like 8 or 9 different rounds of interviews. And he said one of the things that definitely differentiated himself and that he could tell got a lot of traction was talking about the business model canvas, talking about the competition, because again, as Emily said, his technical skills were fine, but what really differentiated him was understanding the business side. So you can imagine that they're looking for somebody who's technical, but also understands the business side, understands the customer. So he found that the more he talked about the customer discovery process, the business model canvas, what he learned, all the different skills that he learned going through the competition, he felt really helped differentiate him. And especially if you can imagine interviewing for a job and going through 9 different rounds, that it really ended up helping him get this job.
I saw a couple questions in the chat. Yes, you can attend all of the workshops. The workshops actually happen before any of the rounds. So the workshops are open to everybody to attend, and we'll go over the timeline a little bit later, but it would be to your benefit to attend all of the workshops. And no, there's not a maximum for team members. It can be as many as you want. Just I would think about how many people you have to split the money with and how many people you want to deal with making, yeah, to be on a team with. When it gets to be a lot of people, I think it can be a little more difficult to communicate, but you can have as many as you'd like. So we'll go through the difference between a business model versus a business plan. Like we said, the competition used to be a business plan, and now it's more of a business model. So the difference between the two is that a business model focused more on identifying product market fit and, kind of making guesses with your hypothesis and then talking to your customers and either validating or invalidating that hypothesis. Whereas a business plan is it really focused on validation from customers directly. The main thing that we kind of focus on is this a burning problem? Is this something that people are willing to pay for? Or, it may not be the end user, but is someone willing to put money towards this? So here is...
I should go back. One thing I can also mention is I typically imagine a business plan is sort of your execution plan. This is what you plan to do over the next 6, 9, 12 months for your business. What we're really trying to do is focus on prior to that. So the business model canvas is making sure that you have a strong foundation for your business before you go about writing the business plan. And ideally, it's making sure that your customers have the problem you think they have and that you're solving a real problem that they have.
So this is the actual business model canvas, what it looks like, and we're really focused on this upper right hand corner. So once you go through all of our workshops and you've done your customer discovery, doing around 100 or more customer interviews, you should have a really solid grasp on that upper right hand corner that's really focused on the customers, how to get to them, and what your value proposition is to them. So that's our main focus. And
but
then
also don't worry if this is the first time you've ever heard of business model canvas or the first time you've ever seen one. We'll teach you, Emily will teach you everything you need to know as you're going through this.
right. So this little icon kind of shows you what the process is like. You do your customer discovery and then they either validate or invalidate. If they invalidate, you got to make a pivot, go back, do it all over again until you get what is actually a product that you're product or service that your customer actually wants. You figure out what the jobs are that your customers do, and your business model canvas that you initially make at the beginning is probably not going to be what it looks like at the end. And it's good if you make several pivots. That's kind of what the whole journey that you're going to go on is about. So any questions about the business model canvas before we move on to timeline?
There are a couple questions in the chat.
You don't have to have an actual product, so it's not like a demo that you need to have a prototype. It's really more about that finding product market fit, the customer discovery. So you don't actually have to make anything or even have like a first version of a platform if that's what you're working on.
Right. The idea is that as you're talking to potential customers, you want to make sure that, again, you're solving their problem prior to even making code or coding up an app or building a prototype. It's really making sure that you validated the getting product market fit.
So here's the timeline of the competition. So we're in September right now. The registration is now open. And then a little later, we'll talk about some team forming and some ideas we have if you're looking for a team on how to get one together before the bi-weekly workshops start in October. So starting in October, we'll have about an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours, depending on everybody's time availability, every other week. So that's kind of not the only time commitment you need to consider, because between the workshops you should be doing your customer discovery and discussing with your team the pivots that you'll make. So we'll have those. There'll be a few before Thanksgiving, and then we'll break over winter break and then resume those January through February, and there will be, I think, 1 or 2 in March as well. And then the rounds will actually begin in March, and then the semifinals and finals, or at least the finals, will be in April. Since the university announced the shift in spring semester, we may have to move some things around, but this is the timeline as it stands now, and as always, the schedule is subject to change. So I see there's some
I can answer Nancy's question. So in terms of patentability, the university has a sister organization called the Purdue Research Foundation. A group within that's called OTC, Office of Tech Commercialization. They can help assist you in patenting your idea if you talk to them. And then one of the great things is that as a student, President Daniels has made it such that basically all student ideas are your own intellectual property. So it's nothing that Purdue will own, even if you're officially using Purdue resources or whatnot. Basically, if you're a student paying tuition, the intellectual property will be yours.
So about the workshops, I see a lot of questions about virtual, if they're available online. So all of the workshops actually will be online. Arnold and I are both working from home, and it's just best that we do everything online, just because a lot of students are also online. Like we see here, not everybody is in West Lafayette, so everything will be virtual. We had intended on having an in-person event as the finals, and that's not totally out of the question, but it's seeming way less likely every day that that's going to happen. So the finals will probably also be virtual as well. So it's not a disadvantage to be online because everybody's going to be online. If members of the team graduate by December, since all of the workshops are online, they can still keep attending them through the spring, and they can still pitch at the end and participate in the actual rounds if they just graduated in December.
And then Katerina had a question. Partners or other people on your team, they don't have to be college students necessarily. They could be in high school. They can have graduated. They can be other entrepreneurs.
Arnold, you want to answer the question about seed funding? I don't think, or obligations.
No, so basically the cash prize that you can win in the finals can be paid in two different ways. One, it can be paid in cash to you as an individual, or two, it can be directly deposited if you've already formed your company, and it can go into your company bank account. We've had both those situations in the past. And again, this is just a kind of a one-time payment for participating or doing well in the competition. Where you go from there is up to you. So again, Purdue will not, there are no obligations to the funding. It's basically a cash prize.
Yep. And I saw a question about non-Purdue students attending the workshops. Yes, they can attend because they're all going to be in Zoom. So as long as I have their email and they can get the Zoom information, they can attend. Okay. Any more questions about the timeline before I move on? The way that we do the cash prizes, it doesn't affect your financial aid.
We've gotten that question a lot in the past, and so we're trying to help you out in that sense.
Oh, and the workshops aren't necessarily required, but I would say that it's definitely in your best interest to attend all of them because a lot of times we'll ask people to talk and we'll give direct feedback to the teams that are in the workshops. So if you have questions about your idea along the way, like, you know, is this a good idea? What do these customer insights mean? Stuff like that. If you bring that up in the workshops, you're kind of getting feedback that people who aren't in the workshops or who don't speak up in the workshops aren't going to get. So it's definitely going to help you to attend all of the workshops, but they're not mandatory.
Okay, and then a couple of the IP questions. So Shashank had a question. So the only time there would be a potential hook for intellectual property would be if you were working in a research lab with a faculty and they were paying you to do research. Then there's the possibility that that intellectual property would be owned by Purdue. For the most part, all this, anything that you'd be doing in a class, like a senior design project, for any of your other classes would be owned by you. If you have, I think it'd be best if you have other specific questions, we can either take it after Emily goes to the majority of the material, or you can see us offline from that point of view.
Yep. And there's a question, the team lead does need to be a Purdue student, just because we will be using Brightspace for the competition a little bit to hold content and maybe have you upload some sort of like homework assignments from the workshop. So if you're going to be the team lead, you should be someone who at least has access to Brightspace. So I don't know that it matters if they're a full-time student or part-time, as long as you have access. Arnold, we don't have any rules about it being full-time, do we?
No, part-time student is okay.
Okay. And then on the dates for the workshops, actually what we're going to do next is a quick poll on people's availability. So we actually haven't picked precise dates yet, but after we do that, then they will be posted in all of the places. All right.
And then for Pratik's question, again, I think if it's an idea that you originated and you're getting help on, it's very likely yours.
Yep. And Max, for your question, no, this year we're not doing the workshop incentive. All right. Let's do a quick poll again. Let me bring it up. So this is gauging everybody's availability since people are spread out kind of around the world right now, and a lot of people are doing online classes. Just kind of let us know what the best day of the week is. And I know the time is hard because, your time on Mondays might be different than Tuesdays. So if you're trying to pick a time that you're available, most days, or type in the chat if like a day or a time absolutely doesn't work for you. We can save the chat and kind of go through that, but we'll pick a day and a time that works for the majority of people. So I'll let that go for a little bit. Yes, the workshops are free, and all of them will be recorded, and we'll post them to Brightspace. It's best if you can attend live, like I said, to get that feedback and everything, but understand if we pick a time that absolutely doesn't work for you, then they will be recorded and you can certainly watch them later.
But that's also where if you have a larger team, then if somebody on your team or other team members can make it, that actually helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm. And no, you don't need to have any prior knowledge about business or anything. That's kind of what this is about, is teaching you what you need to know in order to fill out that business model canvas and make sure that this is a product or an idea that's actually going to work. But there's no like financial stuff that you have to put together. Like you don't need to do pro forma and all that. And yes, we're going to go through in just a few slides how to find teammates if you aren't on campus or just don't even have an idea to work on, but you want to participate. So we'll go through all that in a little bit. So I think we're waiting on maybe one more person to vote. It may be me that's not voting.
Could be me too.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just end it then. All right. Thank you for sharing your availability. All right. So now we'll go through what you're actually going to have to deliver in each of the rounds so you know what to prepare for. At the end of this, like I said, these two rounds will be in March. Most of the rounds actually will be happening in March, and then April 1st will be the finals. So for that first round, this is really just to show us at the end of all of the workshops that you learned something, that you were able to fill out your business model canvas and show the different iterations that you went through. So if you had to make pivots based on your customer discovery, like doing interviews with your customers, and you learned you needed to pivot, that's what we want you to show. So you'll be showing like a few different versions of your business model canvas and how things changed throughout the year that we're working together. And then also a 5-minute video that discusses your customer discovery journey. So tell us what you learned, what insights that you got from your customers were, and that's just basically to make sure that you absorbed the information and learned kind of what you were supposed to learn through the workshops. Or if you've already taken a class or gone through another program similar to this, show us what you did through there in case you don't end up attending any of the workshops. And then for round 2, that'll be an executive summary, which we'll go through in the workshops, templates for those and how to put one of those together. And then we'll also have feedback sessions and practice pitches with the judges. So these are the alumni, entrepreneurs, and VCs that I talked about earlier, that they will actually take time. I think last year we did like 20-minute sessions with each team, and so they'll give you some really awesome feedback. And even if you don't end up making it to the finals, that is an opportunity that people might hear what you're talking about and get really excited about it, and try to connect you with people that they know. So that's an awesome opportunity, and that's a part of round 2. And then for the semifinal and final round, we were originally planning to have this in person at the Startup Purdue Expo and have the semifinals be a booth presentation at that showcase. It's likely we're going to have to go virtual, but we did that last year. And what we did in place of that booth was have a 10-minute video submission, which was basically what you would have pitched to the judges walking around talking to you at that showcase. So from there, judges will either watch the videos or talk to you in person, most likely watch the videos, and then select 4 to 5, 6 finalists that will pitch live to a panel of judges for their shot at $100,000 in prizes. So that's kind of each of the rounds and what you're expected to do for each of those. I see a question about, yes, so we consider the Foundry to be our sister organization. We work really closely with them. So if you have any interest in any of their programs or anything, just let us know and we can connect you to the people there. So this is what I talked about, what probably won't happen on campus this year. We were planning to have the Startup Purdue Expo in the North and South ballrooms of the Union, which would have been a combination of multiple entrepreneurship events on campus and bring all of those 30 judges to campus together. And then, like I said, finalists being selected that day to pitch live to a panel of judges. So no matter what, our finals will still be on April 1st. It just might end up being virtual. Can we do BMC and Firestarter at the same time? Yeah, you'll learn a lot of the same stuff. I think Firestarter is just way more condensed. Would you agree, Arnold?
I would agree.
Okay. All right. So I think this is what a lot of people want to know, how to actually register for the competition. So this year we're doing registration a little bit differently. We're using a service called Prolent. It's a student startup actually out of Carnegie Mellon that we're working with. So you'll register on the platform as an individual. You can go ahead and scan the QR code if you want with your phone and it'll bring up the site. You'll register as an individual by clicking the blue register button. Connect your LinkedIn profile if you want. It will ask you for skills, interests, stuff like that. In full disclosure, this is because Prolent actually gives that data and your profile information, if you choose to make it public and not private, to companies that are looking to hire interns or full-time positions. So it's actually in your best interest to fill that out as fully as you can if you are looking for an internship or a job, because you can also list other projects and stuff that you've worked on. It will actually connect directly to your BMC project if you'd like. So people, if you're applying for jobs, or they can actually seek you out. So if you fill that information out fully, there's a chance you may be contacted about a job at some point. So you'll first register as an individual, and then after forming your team, or if you already have a team together, then you can register for the competition as a team. I talked to Smarth with Prolent, and he said that you do that by going to your My Team tab, and you can add as many members as you like. I don't think that there's any limit on it, but if you're trying to add 12 people and you find that it doesn't give you enough space for that, let me know and I can reach out to them and see if they can add. And then this platform will also be used for all your submissions to the rounds. So it's kind of an all-in-one platform for us. So if you have to submit your videos, your exec summary, it's a way to keep all of your information together, which will help kind of organize it for you and also help us to communicate with you. And then also the judges will do all of the judging through that and give their feedback. So it'll automatically be sent to you afterwards. So you'll have your feedback right away instead of having to wait for it a little bit. So I'm sure that there's probably questions about registration. Does anybody have questions before we move on to how to find teammates? No, the competition's not related to any course or anything like that. So any assignments, they're not for a grade, they're not connected to your GPA at all. It's a non-academic thing. All right, we can move on. We'll have more time for questions at the end. So a couple of people mentioned finding teammates. So if you have an idea, but you're looking for more teammates that have specific skills or a background interest that you don't have, like if you're really good at the back end stuff, but you need somebody who has skills in marketing, or if you just want to participate in the competition, but you don't have an idea or know anybody who wants to be a team on you, with you, this year we're partnering with Brainchild, who was actually the third place finalists in our competition last year. So they actually went through the same competition, and they know that how hard it is to kind of form a team and to do the project management side. So they're working on a platform that will actually help connect you with team members. The first version of the platform won't actually be ready until November. So that's a little bit of an issue, but what we're doing instead is they've created a private LinkedIn group just for the business model competition this year. It's a private group, and you'll just go to that link and request to be added to the group. And then they've provided a template for posts that you can put in there, whether you have an idea or whether you're looking for a team. And then if if you see somebody that you would want to connect with, then you can comment directly on it, DM them, or if there aren't connections being made, then the Brainchild team will actually step in and help connect people that they think would mesh well together on a team. So we'll go through just a couple examples of what those posts will look like. So this is if you have a team, this is what your template will look like. So you'll say, what your email is, what your major is, minor, and the status. So I have a team, I'm looking for 2 more members. And then you give a little description of your idea, what you're working on, and what you're looking for, the top 5 skills that you're looking for. And your preference on meeting either virtually or in person. And then this is the template for if you're looking for a team, you don't have an idea. So kind of the same information, but you're listing your top skills instead of what you're looking for, and then a little bit about yourself. All right, so the link to register is down at the bottom there if you didn't get it earlier. So I see that there's, yes. Lola, can you post the LinkedIn profile link in the chat? I'll go back there. Just type it in. And then a draft of this presentation. Yes. We can post it in Brightspace. You won't be able to see it until you register, and then we put you into Brightspace. Or I can also email it out to everybody who registers as well. Thank you, Lola. There was a question about 5 minutes mission for round 1 per person. It's per team. So you can do your video as a whole team. There's that link to register again. So for round 1 and 2, there aren't a certain number of teams necessarily. The only time it's whittled down really is between semifinals and finals. So most everybody, our goal is for everybody who participates to make it to the semifinals.
We have usually between 50 and 60 teams that kind of start out the
Mhm.
competition.
Yeah, and then I think we had 30 in semifinals last year.
Yeah, something like that.
Any other questions? I think you can also unmute yourself if you would rather just speak up and ask. Oh, also, this is being recorded and posted on Facebook. So if anybody is watching this on Facebook right now, you can also post questions in the comments, and one of us will get back to you with an answer.
So, can I just jump in?
Yep.
So I'm kind of confused. So are we using the Prolin platform or the Brainchild LinkedIn page to actually, move forward with this?
For registering, it's the Prolent platform that the link is up there right now. That's what you actually register. You only use the Brainchild LinkedIn group if you're looking for a team, either to add teammates or to join a team.
Okay. And you said they're working on an application and should be ready by November.
Yeah, so the actual application that they're building, like the real platform that you'll log into and do all of that, won't be ready for November. So, won't be ready until November. So this is kind of like a stopgap thing that they're doing in between just to do something for the business model competition participants because we're starting earlier than when their platform will be ready. But it'll work essentially the same way that their platform is going to work. You'll still be able to search through all of the different postings. That's why they formatted the templates the way that they did, so that you'll still be able to have the benefit of searching through and finding people that have the skills that you're looking for.
Cool, cool. So would we be migrating from the LinkedIn to the new platform if that happens?
Yeah, you'll probably have to fill out a new profile.
Okay.
Then I don't think it'll kind of take everything over, but it shouldn't be too difficult. They went through a little demo with us, and it's actually really similar to what you will be filling out for Prolent. So you might feel like if you do that, that you're filling out the same information twice, and you kind of are, but it's for different purposes.
Yeah, I actually worked with them over the summer, and they're a pretty cool team. And
Yep, they're
yeah,
awesome.
they're trying to mimic Prolin, and hopefully they can, get that done. And yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah. It'd actually be great. Arnold was saying if Prolent and Brainchild can kind of morph into one product, because then it's everything that we need.
Yeah, Monopoly is always the best thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool.
Oh, lots of people working with Brainchild. Awesome. All right. Graduate student not familiar with Brightspace. Yeah, that's a good question about having access after you graduate. My understanding is you would not still have access. Um, if you still have access to your Purdue email, you might still be able to access it, but I can also ask ITAP about that and make sure. You might need to have somebody on your team who's still in school so they can access the Brightspace, or you can just let me know, hey, I graduated and I can't access the Brightspace anymore, and I can send you things individually if that's a problem.
Hello, me again.
Yeah.
So is there a deadline for forming teams, or I feel like because there's a lot of workshops over the fall, and competition is pretty much in March and April. So do you have a set
Yeah,
deadline?
yeah, there's not a deadline. You can add team members and remove them throughout the whole process. At some point, probably in March, we would ask you to finalize your team, but yeah, you can add, remove people whenever.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of pruning, especially when it comes to working remotely.
Right.
That's one of the problems that we encounter. Client reliability, I mean, is making sure that everyone is completely focused. We don't have a course offering or some kind of reliability to follow. But, okay, so
Right. Yep.
March is pretty much our deadline. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So any other questions? I'll kind of hang out for a couple minutes if anybody else wants to ask anything. And like I said, this will be posted on Facebook. You can also email with any additional questions that you have.
Feel free to follow us on all our social media tags to get information about upcoming events and other things that our center offers.
Yep.
Yeah, what Lola said.
So are we registering on the Prelent website and also add project and add teammates through the same website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And if you have any issues with registering, there is a email listed at the bottom of that page. It's, I think, support@Prolent, and Samarth is the guy who runs it, and I know that he responds within a couple of minutes to any emails that you send to that. So, but if you do have any problems registering and you're not